On the desolate planet of New Terra, the sun hung low, casting long shadows across the barren landscape. Dust storms often swept through the small settlements, erasing the tracks of those who dared venture too far. Amidst the relentless winds and the whir of machinery, Alara pushed through the rusting remains of what had once been a thriving colony. Her fingers brushed against a cool metallic surface, a relic of humanity's former glory. With every beat of her heart, the thought of rediscovering lost technologies sent a thrill coursing through her veins. As she navigated deeper into the wreckage, a flicker of something caught her eye. She knelt beside a mound of debris, brushing aside the layers of dust to reveal a hatch. It was old but surprisingly intact, its edges glowing faintly in the dim light. Heart pounding, Alara pried it open, revealing a narrow staircase leading down into darkness. She hesitated only for a moment before descending, her flashlight beam cutting through the shadows. The air was stale, thick with the scent of forgotten memories. At the bottom, she found herself in a vast chamber filled with the remains of technology long abandoned. Circuit boards, dormant engines, and rusting frames lay scattered about, a graveyard of human ingenuity. But it was the enormous starship at the far end that drew her in like a moth to a flame. Its hull, though battered and corroded, still held an air of majesty. This was no ordinary ship. It bore the markings of the once great Terran fleet. With each step closer, Alara's excitement grew. She had heard stories of the old wars and the might of humanity's starships, but to stand before one was awe-inspiring. She climbed aboard, her hands trembling as she brushed away layers of dust from the control panel. The moment she activated the ship's systems, holographic displays flared to life, casting a bluish glow around the room. "Welcome, Admiral," a synthesized voice echoed through the chamber. "Initiating systems check." Alara's breath hitched. The ship was still operational, and it had a data core. As the ship's AI began to boot up, she stumbled across a hidden compartment beneath the control panel. Inside lay a small data drive, pulsating with energy. She snatched it up, her mind racing with possibilities. This could be the key to humanity's resurgence. Days passed as Alara pored over the information from the data drive. It contained military tactics, advanced starship designs, and, most importantly, details on the Exile's curse, a prophecy that warned of doom for those who dared challenge the Zephyrians. But the more she read, the more a plan formed in her mind. She began to gather a team of like-minded individuals, each drawn by the spark of hope ignited by her discovery. Her first recruit was Jax, a former pilot whose fiery spirit matched her own. He was eager to share stories of his battles against the Zephyrians, and brought with him an array of contacts scattered across the galaxy. Then there was Mira, a brilliant engineer known for her uncanny ability to fix anything, who jumped at the chance to work on the legendary ship. As the trio met under the glow of the ship's holographic displays, Alara shared her vision of reclaiming humanity's legacy. They would resurrect the fleet and prepare for war, not just for survival, but for vengeance against the alien oppressors who had forced them into hiding. The thrill of rebellion filled the air, pushing away the oppressive weight of despair that had lingered for too long. But with every ounce of hope came a growing sense of foreboding. The Zephyrians were not ignorant of their movements. They were watching, waiting for the moment to strike. As the final preparations began, the realization dawned upon Alara. She was not just awakening a ship, but the spirit of humanity itself. Little did she know, the Exile's curse was not just a story of doom. It was a test of their will to survive and fight back. As the resurgence glided silently through the asteroid field, the tension inside the ship was palpable. Alara stood at the helm, her heart racing not only from the adrenaline of their narrow escape, but also from the weight of their mission. They were on the brink of something monumental, yet the fear of failure loomed over her like a shadow. She glanced at her crew, each face a mix of determination and apprehension. "We're getting close," Mira announced, her fingers flying over the navigation console. The Zypherian stronghold is just ahead. From the intel we gathered, their defenses are primarily focused on the outer perimeter. If we're careful, we can slip in undetected. Jax leaned over Mira's shoulder, studying the holographic display. There's a maintenance access tunnel on the north side. It's not heavily monitored. We should take that route to avoid confrontation. Elara nodded, her mind racing with possibilities. Good thinking, Jax. We'll need to be quick and quiet. Once we're inside, we have to gather as much information as we can. Our goal is to learn their supply routes and any details about their military movements. The crew readied themselves, donning tactical gear and preparing their equipment. Elara could feel the weight of their mission pressing down on her, but she refused to let fear overshadow her resolve. They were fighting not just for their own freedom, but for every human oppressed by the Zephyrians across the galaxy. Let's remember why we're doing this, Elara said, her voice steady and firm. Every one of us has lost something to the Zephyrians. Today, we take a stand. We show them that humanity will not be caged. The crew exchanged determined glances, their spirits igniting with a shared sense of purpose. With the plan set, Elara piloted the ship towards the coordinates of the maintenance tunnel, her heart pounding with anticipation. As they approached the stronghold, the imposing structure came into view, a dark fortress bristling with defenses and patrolled by the menacing silhouettes of Zephyrian ships. But Elara's focus was unwavering. She expertly maneuvered the resurgence, angling for the concealed entrance. Activating cloaking mode, Mira announced as they neared the tunnel's mouth. The ship shimmered and blended into the shadows of the asteroid field, rendering them invisible to the enemy sensors. Now, Elara commanded, and the crew sprang into action, exiting the ship with precision and stealth. They moved like shadows, slipping through the maintenance tunnel as the faint hum of machinery surrounded them. Inside, the air was stale and filled with the scent of grease and metal. Dim lights flickered overhead, casting long shadows that danced along the walls. They moved carefully, navigating the maze of corridors and junctions, guided by Mira's navigation device. "Keep an eye out for patrols," Jax whispered, his voice barely above a breath. "We don't want to run into any guards." They pressed deeper into the heart of the stronghold, the pulse of their mission thrumming in their ears. Elara led the way, her heart racing as they neared the central command room. Every step felt like a step toward destiny, the anticipation mingling with anxiety. "Here it is," Mira said, stopping in front of a heavy door, marked with the Zephyrian emblem. "The command room. If we can access the mainframe, we'll be able to download all their intel." Elara nodded, adrenaline coursing through her veins. "Let's move quickly. We don't have much time." With Jax covering the rear, Mira hacked into the door's security panel, her fingers flying over the controls. The door hissed open, revealing a cavernous room filled with consoles and screens displaying streams of data. The glow of the monitors illuminated the grim faces of Zephyrian officers, their voices low and urgent. "Get to the main terminal," Elara urged, her eyes scanning the room for threats. Mira rushed to the nearest console, her hands moving deftly as she initiated the download. "I'm in, but it'll take a few minutes to pull everything." "Jax, keep watch," Elara commanded, scanning the room. Her pulse quickened as she spotted a group of Zephyrian guards entering from the far side. "We've got company," Jax shouted, raising his weapon. "Get ready," Elara shouted, adrenaline surging through her as she positioned herself to defend the console. The guards spotted them and drew their weapons, their eyes narrowing in recognition. "Humans," one of the guards shouted, and chaos erupted. Elara's heart raced as she opened fire, the crack of energy blasts echoing in the confined space. She moved with precision, her instincts taking over as she fought alongside her crew. Mira continued to focus on the download, sweat beading on her brow. "We need to hold them off until Mira finishes." Jax yelled, firing at the approaching guards. The clash of rebellion against tyranny filled the air, a testament to the spark igniting within them. Alara fought fiercely, her resolve strengthening with every shot fired. This was their moment, the moment where the flame of rebellion would spark into an inferno. With a final surge of determination, she turned to Mira, who was close to completing the download. How much longer? Almost there, Mira shouted, her fingers flying over the console. Just as the download completed, a loud explosion rocked the command room. The sound of shattering glass echoed around them as the walls began to crumble under the onslaught. Alara's heart raced as she realized they had only moments left. "Let's go," Alara shouted, her voice rising above the chaos. "Now?" With the data in hand, they sprinted towards the exit, adrenaline driving them forward. The spark of rebellion had ignited, and they were determined to carry that fire back into the galaxy. The days that followed Lyra's rescue were a blur of activity. Alara, fueled by a mix of determination and urgency, gathered her crew for a strategy session in the cockpit of the Resurgence. The ship hummed softly around them, its systems gradually coming to life under Mira's skilled hands. As they huddled around the central display, Jax tapped the screen, illuminating a map of the nearby Zephyrian supply routes. "We've pinpointed several key locations," he explained, his voice steady but tinged with excitement. "This depot here in the Marisol system is crucial. It supplies the Zephyrians with weapons and resources for their ongoing campaigns. If we can hit it hard, we can disrupt their operations and gain much-needed supplies for ourselves." Mira leaned closer, her eyes gleaming with enthusiasm. "We might even find some advanced technology. If the legends are true, they could be hiding prototype weaponry in those depots. We can't afford to miss this opportunity." Alara nodded, her heart racing at the prospect of a successful raid. "All right then, we'll split into 2 teams. One will provide cover while the other infiltrates the depot. We'll gather what we can and get out before they even know we're there. Everyone ready?" The crew exchanged determined nods, their spirits buoyed by the thrill of the plan. They had worked too hard to let fear stifle their resolve. With their roles assigned, they set to work, preparing the ship for its first mission. As the hours passed, laughter and camaraderie filled the air, a welcome distraction from the haunting specter of the Exile's curse. On the day of the raid, the crew suited up in makeshift armor, hearts pounding with anticipation. Alara stood at the helm, her hands gripping the controls as the Resurgence glided through the vastness of space. The ship's systems thrummed beneath her touch, a testament to their labor. Approaching the target zone, Mira called out, her eyes scanning the scanners for any sign of enemy vessels. "Stealth mode engaged," Jax added, flipping switches and dimming the lights. The ship fell into a hushed silence, a ghost weaving through the cosmos. As they neared the Zephyrian depot, the sight was both awe-inspiring and intimidating. Massive structures loomed against the sturdy backdrop, their surfaces glinting menacingly. Alara's pulse quickened. This was their chance to strike a blow against their oppressors. "Team 1, you're clear to drop," Alara instructed, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her. She watched as Jax and a group of 4 others prepared to disembark in a smaller shuttle, equipped with stealth technology designed to slip past the depot's defenses. "Keep comms open," Mira reminded them, adjusting the ship's frequency to maintain contact. "We'll be right here if you need backup." With a final nod of reassurance, Jax and his team shot off into the abyss, cloaked from detection. Alara turned to Mira, her eyes focused on the larger operation. "Let's prepare for an extraction. We may need to move fast if things go south." Minutes ticked by like hours. The tension was palpable as they awaited news from the ground team. Just when the silence felt unbearable, Jax's voice crackled through the comms, breaking the tension like glass shattering. "The Resurgence, we're in. The place is crawling with Zephyrian guards, but we're making our way to the armory. We'll keep you posted." "Copy that," Alara responded, her heart racing with excitement. "Stay sharp." As Jax and his team navigated the labyrinth of the depot, Alara and Mira monitored the situation from above. Suddenly, an alarm blared through the depot, flooding their comms with static. "We've been spotted," Jax shouted, urgency thick in his voice. "Initiating Plan B." Alara's stomach dropped. The mission had gone awry, but they had trained for this. "Mira, get ready to initiate the extraction protocol. We're not leaving them behind." On it, Mira's fingers danced across the controls, prepping the shuttle for immediate deployment. The adrenaline surged within Alara, a mix of fear and determination igniting her resolve. "Jax, can you still get to the armory?" Alara urged, her voice unwavering. "We're close, but we need cover fire," Jax replied, his breath heavy with exertion. Alara steeled herself, ready to launch into action. The time for hesitation was over. They would fight back, not just for the supplies, but for their very survival and the legacy of humanity. As she prepared the resurgence for a bold move, she felt the weight of the Exile's curse looming over them. This was their moment to redefine it, a chance to rewrite the narrative of humanity's downfall into one of resurgence and defiance. The alarms blared relentlessly as chaos erupted within the Zephyrian depot. Jax and his team fought against the overwhelming odds, ducking behind crates and exchanging fire with the guards. The metallic clang of weapons echoed around them, punctuated by bursts of energy and the occasional thud of a body hitting the ground. Jax's heart raced as he glanced at his comrades, adrenaline surging through him. They were outnumbered, but not outmatched. "Push forward," Jax shouted, rallying his team. "We need to reach that armory before they bring in reinforcements." They ducked and weaved through the narrow corridors, adrenaline fueling their every move. Jax caught a glimpse of Mira's holographic display as she updated them from above, her voice steady yet laced with urgency. "You're close to the armory, but be careful. I'm detecting increased Zephyrian activity in your vicinity." With the sound of heavy boots approaching, Jax knew they had little time. "Stay sharp," he barked, leading the charge down a corridor lined with flickering lights and ominous shadows. The weight of the Exile's curse pressed upon him. What if their reckless pursuit of glory only led to tragedy? Meanwhile, Alara watched anxiously from the resurgence, her heart heavy with doubt. She had always been a fierce believer in their cause, but the stakes had never felt this dire. She couldn't shake the memory of Lyra's near capture or the fear that had gripped the crew when she had disappeared. Was she putting them in danger by pursuing this mission? Would they pay the price for her ambition? "Mira, can we get eyes on Jax?" Alara asked, gripping the console tightly as she forced herself to focus. Attempting to boost the signal now, Mira replied, her fingers flying over the controls. "Just a moment." Alara's pulse quickened as she anxiously scanned the display. Suddenly, the screen flickered to life, showing a view of Jax's team maneuvering through the armory doors. They had made it. "Great job, team. Secure the area," Alara encouraged, but her relief was short-lived. An explosion rattled the structure, and the feed went dark. "Jax, respond." Alara shouted into the comms, but all she received was static. Fear gripped her heart as the reality of their situation sank in. They were running out of time, and if they didn't act quickly, they might lose everything they had fought for. "All right, we're going in," Alara decided, a fierce determination settling over her. "We'll create a distraction to draw their attention away from Jax and his team." Mira nodded, her expression resolute. "I'll prep the shuttle for immediate deployment. We need to get close enough to provide cover." As Alara prepared the resurgence for the daring maneuver, she felt the weight of the choices she had made. This mission was more than a simple raid. It was a turning point for her and her crew. The fear of failure was suffocating, and the shadows of past mistakes loomed large. Back in the depot, Jax regained his footing, a surge of adrenaline propelling him forward. They had reached the armory, a massive vault filled with weapons and supplies, yet they faced overwhelming odds. "We can't just load up and leave," he said, his voice steady but urgent. "We have to destroy the rest of their stockpile, or they'll just replace it." "Agreed," one of his teammates replied. "But that means we need to split up and plant explosives. We'll need to be quick." As they set to work, Jax glanced around at his friends, their faces etched with determination but marred by doubt. What if this gamble cost them their lives? Just then, a shadow loomed at the entrance. A squad of Zephyrian guards had arrived, weapons raised and ready. "Go!" Jax yelled, urgency in his tone. They scattered, planting explosives while dodging laser fire. The air crackled with tension, and the weight of the moment settled heavily on Jax's shoulders. Each second felt like an eternity as he fought against the instinct to flee. In the chaos, the shadows of the past emerged. Memories of the last war resurfaced, reminding him of the choices he had made that had led to loss and devastation. The weight of those decisions haunted him, whispering fears of repeating history. With a deep breath, Jax steeled himself. "For them," he whispered, thinking of those who had fought and fallen. They would not allow the Zephyrians to erase their legacy. As the countdown began on the explosives, the depot echoed with shouts and chaos. Just then, Alara's voice broke through the comms, filled with urgency. "Jax, we're coming to extract you. Get to the landing zone now." Jax's heart soared at her words, igniting a new fire within him. "We're almost done," he shouted back, racing against the clock. The armory was about to be their downfall and salvation in one swift move. With the final explosive set, Jax and his team dashed toward the exit, adrenaline coursing through their veins. They burst through the doors just as the first explosion rocked the building, sending a shockwave of debris into the air. Alara's shuttle swooped down, and as they leaped aboard, the weight of their choices hung heavy in the air. The mission had been a success, but at what cost? Would they emerge from this fight with their humanity intact, or would they become monsters in their quest for vengeance? Only time would tell as they soared into the darkness of space, leaving behind the shadows of the past. As the resurgence soared away from the flaming wreckage of the Zephyrian depot, a mixture of exhilaration and dread filled the air. The crew had accomplished what they set out to do. They disrupted the enemy's supply lines and acquired valuable resources. Yet the exhilaration was tempered by the realization that they had made themselves targets. The Zephyrians would not take this affront lightly. Jax report. Alara commanded over the comms, her voice steady even as her heart raced with concern. "Everyone's accounted for," Jax replied, breathless but triumphant. "We secured weapons, ammo, and intel on their supply routes, but they're going to come after us hard. We need to get out of here." Mira worked furiously at the controls, adjusting their course as she tapped into the navigational data they had gathered. "I'm rerouting us to the nebula rifts. We can hide among the debris there and wait for the storm to cover our tracks. It's risky, but it's our best shot." Alara nodded, grateful for Mira's quick thinking. The nebula rifts were known for their treacherous storms, a natural defense against pursuers. As the ship veered toward the swirling colors of the nebula, the crew's relief was palpable, but the tension remained. "Set up defensive protocols," Alara instructed. "If the Zephyrians find us, we need to be ready." As the ship entered the nebula, a breathtaking spectacle unfolded outside. Pulsating clouds of gas and dust swirled in brilliant hues of violet, blue, and green, creating a mesmerizing dance of colors. But the beauty of the nebula masked its dangers. Violent energy surges and unpredictable gravitational shifts lurked within its depths. "We're entering the eye of the storm," Mira announced, her voice tinged with excitement and anxiety. "Keep your eyes peeled for energy fluctuations. They can be deadly." Alara gripped the console, her mind racing with the implications of their choice. They had thrust themselves into a chaotic realm, both literal and metaphorical. Just as they sought refuge from the Zephyrian threat, they found themselves navigating the turbulence of their own fears and doubts. Hours turned into a tense waiting game as the crew monitored the ship's systems and kept a lookout for any signs of pursuit. The nebula enveloped them, its colorful tendrils wrapping around the resurgence, offering both concealment and danger. "Do you think they'll find us?" one of the crew members asked quietly, his voice barely rising above the hum of the engines. "I hope not," Jax replied, his eyes fixed on the swirling clouds outside. "But we've made some enemies. The Zephyrians are relentless." The weight of their mission weighed heavily on Alora's shoulders. They had struck a blow against the Zephyrians, but what would that mean for them in the long run? Would they be forever marked by their rebellion, or could they find a way to reclaim their legacy without losing themselves in the process? Just as her thoughts began to spiral, the ship jolted violently, the lights flickering ominously. "What was that?" Mira exclaimed, her fingers flying across the controls as alarms blared around them. "Energy surge detected," the ship's AI announced, its voice calm amid the chaos. "Engaging stabilization protocols." "Hold on," Alara shouted as the ship lurched again, tossing the crew against their harnesses. They braced themselves, the nebula's fury rising around them. The colors outside morphed into an angry swirl, flashes of lightning illuminating the storm's heart. "We're losing control," Mira yelled, fighting to regain stability. "If we don't stabilize soon, we'll crash." In that moment of chaos, Alara's thoughts crystallized. They were in the eye of the storm, both in the nebula and in their struggle against the Zephyrians. It was a time for action. "Mira, divert power to the stabilizers." "Jax, help me reroute the energy from the weapon systems." Alara barked, her voice steady despite the chaos. Together, they worked frantically, channeling every ounce of their training and instincts to regain control. The ship shuddered under the stress, but Alara could feel the flicker of hope igniting within her. They were a team, a force to be reckoned with. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the ship steadied and the alarms fell silent. The swirling nebula began to calm, revealing a breathtaking panorama of stars. "We did it," Mira said, a mixture of relief and disbelief in her voice. Alara allowed herself a moment of respite, letting the weight of their survival sink in. But even as they regained their bearings, she knew that the Zephyrians would not relent. They would regroup, they would hunt, and the storm of war was far from over. As the crew shared relieved laughter and exchanged glances of camaraderie, Alara felt the resolve harden within her. They would face whatever came next together. The eye of the storm had given them a moment's reprieve, but they were warriors now, ready to embrace the tempest and forge their own destiny amid the chaos. As the resurgence drifted through the remnants of the nebula, the crew gathered in the main hold, adrenaline still coursing through their veins. Alara stood at the forefront, her heart swelling with pride and determination. They had weathered the storm, but the fight was far from over. "All right, everyone," she began, her voice cutting through the lingering tension in the air. "We've taken a significant step forward by striking at the Zephyrian supply lines. But now we must leverage that momentum. We can't afford to sit back and wait for them to regroup." Jax nodded, his face etched with resolve. "We need to capitalize on this victory. The intelligence we gathered can help us predict their movements and plan our next strike." Mira pulled up a holographic map, illuminating the star systems around them. "We can coordinate with other exiled human factions. There are reports of scattered resistance groups. If we unite our efforts, we can create a network of support." Alara's eyes gleamed with possibility. "That's the way forward. We're not just fighting for ourselves anymore. We're fighting for every human who's been oppressed, every family torn apart by the Zephyrian regime. This is about building a new legacy." The crew exchanged excited glances, their spirits lifted by the prospect of hope and unity. But Elara felt a weight settle on her heart, the burden of leadership. She had always believed in their cause, but the path ahead was fraught with danger. Could they really succeed in galvanizing a revolution? Over the next few weeks, they forged alliances with other resistance groups, their efforts yielding unexpected allies. Messages were exchanged, plans shared, and dreams reignited across the stars. The exiled humans, once scattered and lost, began to see the glimmer of a shared purpose, a chance to rise against the oppressive Zephyrian regime. As their coalition grew, so did the risks. The Zephyrians, reeling from the blow to their supply lines, ramped up their patrols and intelligence operations. Elara and her crew were constantly on alert, aware that their every move was being watched. One evening, as they convened for a briefing, Mira's voice rang out, breaking the heavy silence. "We've intercepted a Zephyrian transmission. They're planning a major offensive against a human settlement on the outskirts of the Terra Nova system." Elara's stomach knotted at the news. "We can't let that happen. If they succeed, it will send a message that they're still in control. We must act." With a steely determination, the crew sprang into action, strategizing how they could intercept the Zephyrian forces. They devised a plan to create a diversion while a smaller team would move in to evacuate civilians. It was a dangerous gambit, but one they were willing to take. The day of the operation arrived, tension crackling in the air as they prepared for battle. As the resurgence approached the target system, Elara stood at the helm, her heart racing. The site of the human settlement came into view, a bustling community on the brink of devastation. "Commence the diversion," Elara commanded, her voice steady. Jax and Mira took their positions, executing the plan with precision. Explosions erupted in a distant part of the settlement, drawing the attention of the Zephyrian forces. As the chaos unfolded, Elara led a small team to the civilian shelter. The cries for help echoed through the air, fueling their urgency. "We need to move quickly," she shouted, guiding families to safety as explosions rocked the area. Just as they were evacuating the last group, a squad of Zephyrian guards appeared, weapons raised and ready to fire. Elara's heart sank, but she refused to back down. "Protect the civilians," she yelled, standing her ground as her crew readied their weapons. A fierce firefight erupted, the air thick with the sound of energy blasts and cries of defiance. The odds felt overwhelming, but the resolve of the crew and the civilians fueled their fight. Finally, with a desperate push, they managed to break through the enemy lines, retreating back to the resurgence as the last civilians boarded. The Zephyrians had been caught off guard, but their retaliation would come swiftly. As they blasted off into the depths of space, Elara looked back at the settlement, now shrouded in smoke and chaos. They had survived, but the battle was only beginning. With each victory, the tide was turning, and a new era was dawning for humanity, a chance to reclaim their freedom and their identity. In the months that followed, the resurgence became a symbol of hope, a vessel of rebellion and resilience. News of their victories spread across the star systems, inspiring others to rise against their oppressors. Elara, Jax, and Mira stood on the bridge, gazing out into the stars, the weight of their journey settling into something lighter, hope. They had forged a legacy, one rooted in the bonds of friendship and the courage to stand against the darkness. Together, they would continue their fight, knowing that the future was still unwritten, filled with possibilities. And with every battle fought, they would honor those who had come before them, proving that humanity was not merely a flicker in the vastness of space, but a blazing light ready to reclaim its place among the stars.